Hello, good evening, everyone, and a big welcome to all our audiences today from the Chandigarh Literary Society. I'm your host today, Swati Bhadoria, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Victor Ghosh today evening. Welcome, Victor, to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in the show, Swati. It's wonderful, and of course, I thank the Chandigarh Literary Association for that. Society, I mean,
Uh,
yeah, uh,
absolute pleasure
for
having you with us
having
today.
me. Yeah, it's
just
really
just for the
fantastic.
benefit of our audience, Victor is an international brand and communications advisor by profession and a musician at heart. Victor is an explorer and a social researcher, and avidly writes historical thrillers and paranormal genres. He's deeply researched his historical thriller, The Job Sharnock Riddle, which topped the charts as an Amazon bestseller of 2016, and Times described the book as our own Da Vinci Code version. So that's Victor Ghosh for you today, people. Victor, just to kickstart the conversation, I'm sure all the audiences must be intrigued, and so am I, to understand from being a former senior advisor to BBC Media Action, what drew you towards writing?
Okay, yeah, good. I have been writing since maybe 2010. But yeah, see, I have a career, so that's the plan A. Um, so that's communications. I am into communications and mostly social
Right,
communications. So I develop
right.
strategies for countries to initiate mass communication and other areas. So yeah, that's my bread and butter. Because in India you
We all
don't
need a
really
day
earn your,
job, don't we?
yeah, you need a day job. You don't earn your bread and butter from writing. But that has been my passion, and I am a night writer. So after 11
Oh,
o'clock, when kids go to sleep, I write. So that's my second
so
life.
that's where the mystery thrill has come from.
Yeah, you can say, but yes, I have been into. I I am a history lover since my
Uh-huh.
childhood, since fifth standard, I would say, because then actually in fifth standard we were introduced to the ancient Indian history, and since then I have been into history. I am a history buff, and that's how it
Oh,
all
that's good.
happened. Because everything I was reading, I always wanted to see how those times were, how people lived through those days, those civilizations, those times. So that those kind of imagery has always been playing in my mind, and I ended up writing some of them.
You seem to be the curious sorts.
I am actually, yes, I am.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So tell me, this the latest book of yours, The Tomb of God, which we're going to speak about shortly, is your fifth book as an author. The
uh,
first three were in Bengali, and
yeah,
then came the book The Job Sharnock, and then now we have The Tomb of God.
yeah,
So
yeah. This was the one which came first. This is my first English novel, which
own
came
Da
after a
Vinci
couple of,
version.
yeah, which got a kind of a review from the Times of India. They
Right.
called it our own version of Da Vinci Code, and
Yes,
I'm so happy because someone and such a big newspaper owning your book, saying that our own version, it really mattered a lot, and the book did really
absolutely.
well after that, and it topped the chart for quite some long time in 2016 on Amazon.
Before we touch upon the job Sharnock Riddle, could you tell us a little bit about your writing in Bengali? Was it what genre was it? What stories did you tell people in
Yeah,
Bengali? Are
if
any
I
of the books
started,
translated?
if I can, yeah, they're going to be, some of the top stories. I am actually in talk with a couple of publishers. Some of the top stories
Okay.
are going to be published in English very soon. So if I start talking about those short stories, I can go on and on and on. But yeah, they are mostly in the paranormal genre. The eerie stories, but they are not.
Wow.
They are very positive eerie stories
Okay.
in a way,
Okay.
because I primarily wrote those stories for children, and they have
Okay.
become very popular with children, and because they're not that every each and every of the stories are about ghosts, but some of
Mm-hmm.
them are. And even if they are about ghosts, those ghosts are good in some way or the other. So
So more
they
towards
are,
spiritually inclined than the devil and Satan.
yeah, it's a kind of a circle. I have seen that my stories keep on bringing in that some little good deed comes back in a major way in some point of time. So it's
The
that kind of
karmic cycle.
yeah, you can say it's like that. And what
Okay.
I can say that they are very positive kind of stories which stir you up, um, and yeah, they are not scary and they are not horror stories, but they are paranormal. I
Oh,
can say
that also could be an interesting read once it's published in
that.
a different language. Quickly jumping on then to your book, The Job.
Job Channel.
How did you then? Yeah, how did you land up in the genre of mystery thriller set in a background of ancient civilization? The setup, I believe,
Hmm.
starts the plot starts from Kolkata and
Right.
then takes the readers on a journey around the world. So, if you could just tell us a little more about the riddle, which the book
Yeah.
claims it is.
Yeah, thanks for asking, Swati. Because Job Chanuk riddle is where it all started. You know, I was, I am an avid reader, and I read everything that comes across, history, fiction, and anything and everything that I can put my hands on. So I was studying a book, which was a very old book. A Bengali gentleman, a scholar, wrote that book on the history of Kolkata. And as I was reading through, I figured that in between the lines of history, there were possibly a couple of conspiracies which I could see, because I had
Mm-hmm.
developed this kind of a habit that I could read through in between lines. Right. So I figured
Okay.
that there is a story lying in that, and I started. I didn't really thought that I would write a book. I am talking about 2010, because it took me 4.5 years to study, to research, and then it took me
Oh,
1 year to finish that book. Even this Tomb of God, it took me 4.5 years of research after after what I started writing. Right. So and I was in Delhi that time, so I started visiting Kolkata because there are the largest of the two libraries. One is the National Library, and
definitely.
the other one is
Hmm.
the Asiatic Society Library, which is one of the
Right.
oldest library which the Britishers initiated in Kolkata. And
Correct.
most of the documents from the Raj, most of the documents of the company, the East India
Hmm.
Company, are still kept over there. And
Wow.
it so happened that as I went on with my research, I started unearthing things which I didn't know, which many people didn't know. And I started jotting them down, and then I figured that I have to tell the story. And that's how it happened. Actually, the story came to me, and it was a kind of a feeling that I have to tell the story. How do I? In fact, I started thinking that I would write a book in Bengali, because
Okay.
I didn't write anything in English, like
Prior to this, yes.
novel or a story for that matter. So
Right.
this was my
Right.
first, and then it was such a compelling idea that I thought I should write in English and take it to the pan Indian audience, and that's how it happened.
And just speaking to that bit of research that you mentioned, it took you around
Hmm.
4 years to write the first book, typically around the same time to write your new book, The Tomb of God. Uh, so, to what extent of research is required when you have a setup which is based on a historical background, Victor? And how do you manage to go about it?
See, for the first book, this is a brilliant question because whenever I talk about my writing, I love to talk about this. Swati, thanks for asking that. Um, so I initially, when I get into a subject, I do not allow myself to kind of create a plot. I do not do that.
Hmm.
Believe me,
Okay.
for the first 3 years of my research on Jog Chanok or Tomb of God, I didn't have a plot in my mind. I didn't know what the story
Okay.
would look like. It all happened,
Okay.
during the course of during my journey through the research. I tell you one very interesting thing. So I was
Hmm.
for the first book I was researching in the Asiatic Society, Kolkata, and I'm a friendly person. I talk to everyone, even the chaiwala and everyone. I talk to them. So this guy, he was a sweeper. He comes and I was fairly. I said, hey man, he was Madhav Das. Hey Madhav, it's untidy up there. There's cobwebs. So why don't you clean it up with your, whatever broom? So he was a
Right.
smart guy. He said, sir, I'm a sweeper. And sweeping is all about floor. Sweeping doesn't include ceiling. We have
Oh.
cleaners. So he was a smart guy. Anyway, so he was so smart. One day he came to me and said, sir, you were researching about Job Chanok, right? I said, yes, I am. He said, I will give you something. And he went and he came back with this thick kind of a, old, very ancient book. 200,
Hmm.
200, 200-year old documents were there, few of them. And so he said, this is a document. Somebody told me that there are some most important things about Jog Chanok you can go through. I said, what are you saying? I'm not going to touch that dusty and torn kind of stuff. He said, okay, leave it. I will come and I'll take. But after he
Okay.
went, I thought I should go through it at least a couple of pages.
The
Believe
the
me, Swati,
curious person inside you.
believe me, Swati, I went through the few pages and I found that there is a municipality report. It's a
Uh-huh.
municipality report which said after 200 years of Job Charnock's death, the reverend of that church actually organized a kind of dig. 200 after 200
Oh.
years of his death, organized a dig in the grave, right? And that
Wow.
is documented in a municipality, record book, because he took 5 men from the municipality and dug that grave, and with no reason. So that's how I figured, man, there must be something. Why would someone dig it up after 200 years of Job Chanuk's death? And that's how it all started. So you see, a sweeper helped me develop my plot, which I never thought could happen. So,
Wow.
many of these stories are there, they, happen with me.
Just
And
what you mentioned about a while back earlier about your Bengali writings of paranormal activities and the good deeds coming around. I think
I
perhaps
don't,
this was just one of them.
I don't know what yeah, you might call that, because I was so much into that. I wanted something to happen, and this was quite a magic. And people didn't
Hmm.
know about this dig, so it became a very important milestone in my book. And in fact, one of the I wrote my prologue around that. Anyway,
Right.
so yeah, that's one anecdote from my journey of research.
And you have these very two interesting characters, which you take from the first book into the second book as well,
Right,
Eric and Odin. So,
right.
how did you characterize these two protagonists or these two main leads of your book? How did they come about?
See, the first thing I knew when the idea of writing this book came in my mind, that this hero, my protagonist, would not be called Vikram or Vijay or
Uh-huh.
anything like that, because most of the Indian stories and novels, thriller novels and mystery novels I read, uh, I would say around 83% of them are called something like that. So I was very clear in my mind that has to be, that has to sound international. That has to have a kind of
Hmm.
a zing, which is, which is global. And
Right.
and in Bengal we have names like I have my name as
Of course.
Victor, and there's a culture of having this kind of names. So yeah, Eric Roy happened from that conscious decision that my protagonist would be a kind of a global sounding hero, and the name would sing. So Orin also very nice European sounding name, and which sings with his brother, elder brother, Eric.
Right.
That's how it
Right.
happened. But But if you ask me about the characters, I didn't know how they would look, what would be their ages, how they would, how they would walk, talk, and things like that. It all happened through, the development of the plot when I was, finally doing it after, 4 years of research. That I figured that, because I am a communication person, you see, I observe people. That's my, natural way of, interacting. Before interacting, I observe. I really do try to understand that how people are, carrying themselves, how they walk, talk, how they are handling a situation, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, so my heroes are no superheroes. They are just common men with, common abilities, but maybe a little more uh, intelligent than a common person. That's it. But they are common men. They handle situations in a very common and, natural way. So that's about my
Okay.
characters. They're very real.
Just for a layperson to understand. So in a genre like this, which involves history, there's extensive research, and then you create a plot and a character. Typically, from what I hear, it takes about 4 years, give or take, start to finish, to publish such a book. So, at what stage does the plot actually get outlined, and at what stage do the characters or their nuances get defined in this journey?
So I was keeping that. I was expecting a kind of a question from you that, what would be your suggestion for the new coming authors, and I was keeping that. See, as a communication person again, because that's what I have learned, and not only I would say the theories of communications and developing strategy, but I also have learned parallelly. I took a 5 year institutional learning on developing communication design, because I was, from my
Mm-hmm.
childhood, I was good at art, and so I parallelly I did that the design part. So this is very interesting that in communication we say that getting into the story, it becomes very important. Whatever, it's a advertising copy, it's a small article, it's a short story or a big story or a novella. Uh, if you can get inside that story and
Mm-hmm.
see how it's evolving, how it is branching out from the main line to a shorter line, and how people are coming and connecting inside that story. You can see through all of that happening, and then you can come out, because you have them very clear in your head by that time. You have done your research, you have seen the time, the era, you've seen the civilization taking shape, uh, you know in several ways, and then you come back on your desk, and then you develop the characters and start writing. So that's how it all happens in my mind. Most of the stories, the basic plot is developed only after the research, and then when I start
Right.
writing, yeah, then I allow my characters to do things. You would find in my book that if two characters are fighting, in a mood to fight, I allow them to fight. Fight. I'll handle the story in the next chapter. You fight. If they are in a mood to have a banter kind of a situation, I allow them
You
to do
try to
that.
keep it real,
Real, do that. I'll handle the story in the next
relatable to
chapter.
people.
Yeah, because
Right,
that's
right.
that's normal. You cannot create characters who for 2 lines or one paragraph they fight, and the next paragraph they become real and get into the mystery. And no, it doesn't happen that way. So if people are real, they will act like they're real, right? So I let them be
Absolutely.
real.
Absolutely. And just picking up from your childhood, you mentioned to me in our offline conversation about how you have been a storyteller since early days. Can you just tell us,
Oh my
or
my
our
God!
audience, a little bit about that?
Don't get me started, man. That was fantastic. Many of my friends, they, who we are in touch with now, they say that, oh man, you have been telling stories in like what ages. So this was a school which promoted creative learning and performing arts majorly.
Right,
So standard one, we had the storytelling thing for any free period. There would be a storytelling session, and it's on public demand. The childrens would demand someone they would select the one who would tell the story.
Right.
I was initially not really very good, So, but there was a voting and people. So in my mind, standard one, you know, mind that. I figured that I have to be good to stay in the business. I really need to be. So
Right.
I went to my grandfather. He was a fantastic gentleman and quite an explorer and adventurer. So he would tell stories, endless stories. I would listen to those stories and ask questions about, why is he, moduling his modulation, why he has modulation in his voices and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So I was,
Mm-hmm.
in a way, polishing my skills. Believe
Skills.
me, in a year, I was the most popular among the storytellers. So, in popular demand, I would be telling the story by standard two. By standard two, I developed a kind of a, I don't know, what should I call it. It was a kind of a trick that, when I would just know the bell will go off, I would bring the story in such a crucial juncture that eventually there would be a demand that we need the next period all off as well, and because the story has to go off. And it was so wonderful that even the teachers would allow the story to go on because they would also want to listen what happens to the story. So now today, if I look back and when I really see, I was actually developing the tricks now the directors do and use them in their web series when they end an episode.
Right.
They do
Right.
that. So I was doing the same
Leaves
in
people wanting for more.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was fantastic, and we chat about that those days, and they say, "Oh man, there was one time you gave us three periods, consecutive periods, three, and we listened to your story, and all the teachers were sitting over there listening to the same story." So yeah, it has been life has been fantastic.
That's lovely, and that just demonstrates how keen a observer you are, and how you actively process information, and ask questions surrounding that. Quickly,
Yeah.
just coming back to the job Chornok, starts in Kolkata,
Hmm.
and where all does it take the audience on its
Oh,
own?
it's a continent hopping kind of a story. It starts in
Uh-huh.
Kolkata. So there is, for people who are really interested, I need to tell. So Bengal is a very, very, old place in our timeline. So there
Right.
are where Europeans actually came. So we have churches which are made in mid 16th century, 17th century, as old as early 16th century and stuff like that. So I took my story through a trail where there are 4 or 5 such churches, very old churches, and believe me, there were reviews, there were mails which I received that people actually have gone through the trail, visiting those churches, and the kind of energy they had in their voice when they were talking. Oh man, I love that and stuff like that. I said, oh, this is my reward. It can't be better than this for an author that I write something and people go to visit those places and in the same order. That's how I wrote in my book. It's fantastic. And yes, the story goes out to several continents and comes back to India. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, Tomb of God has more travel, and it goes
Yes.
far more places
Yes,
than the
and
Job Chanuk really.
absolutely, and coming to the latest book, The Tomb of God, I believe it has just been
two
released
months
for
two
for
months
reading 2 months back.
Hmm.
Due to the pandemic, still not freely available on bookshelves, but obviously available online,
Hmm.
Kindle read or paperback, both. And Tomb of God is based in a Mesopotamian era, a massacre in Baghdad, an
Hmm.
intriguing plot,
Yeah, yeah,
Victor.
yeah.
Could
It's
you could you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, yeah, of course. So yeah, my books generally they has a root in India because that's how it has to start. Otherwise, why would Indians read?
Your
So
two
so yeah.
characters, Erin and
No, not only that, even the mystery that all the mysteries they start in India. So this book
Okay.
is about the pre-Harappan civilization and the Mesopotamian civilization, and some secret interactions between both the civilizations. So pre-Harappan civilization is in part of it still is in our country, which was the Western
Hmm.
Rajasthan, Bikaner,
Right.
and that side of our country was part of that civilization. So it starts from there, and then with the Mesopotamian civilization, the core of it is in Iraq now. It falls in Iraq now, and so that's these are the two civilizations, two countries. The story takes place mainly. Other than that, it really takes the audience to Europe, especially in Italy, to England, and then comes back to Iraq. So a lot of places are there. There are other places as well, but yeah, mainly in Iraq and Europe, and then it comes back. The story comes back to Mesopotamia, the Iraq region.
So, since it is Baghdad and Iraq, and the excavation site typically was there, how many places did you have to travel to conduct your research around this book? And what were your sources, or what was the medium of research that you used?
Yeah, this is my favorite. Okay. So I didn't know I would include the direct routes. I would take the Silk route, to connect India and
Uh-huh.
Baghdad initially.
Right,
But
right.
I was traveling to Vancouver, and I hear the captain says, "Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you look from the left of your windows, you will see the fantastic terrain of Afghanistan." And not that many people were interested, but I was, of course, interested. I went to see through the window. It was mesmerizing. The rugged terrain of Afghanistan, the mountainous, the top, because you were flying from above. It was mesmerizing. So I immediately thought I have to take this, take my audience through this route. So how best I could do, I actually, I figured out a kind of a bike company is organizing a cross country adventure, and a group of
No,
bikers from Chandigarh, they
you
are
did
going,
that.
they are traveling to Baghdad, and they cross, of
Okay.
course, Pakistan, they cross Afghanistan, they cross Iran, and they reach Iraq. So I sat down with several travel bloggers. I talked to many of them online who are from other countries. They
Mm-hmm.
shared their videos with me. So of course I
Mm-hmm.
didn't travel this trail on ground. I traveled this trail over the top. I flew over above that, but I have seen videos from bloggers, and then I took the Google Map. I actually I took help of a bikers group, because how they
Okay.
actually, when there is a long journey, how they go about it, what are the do's and don'ts, how they take care of medicines and stuff like that, emergencies. So all of those nuances have been kept, and this journey actually has become a wonderful journey, because I'm getting mails and I'm getting calls saying, man, during the pandemic, what have you done? You've taken us through the trail Silk Route, and we've seen through your eyes, and through the story, how beautiful that journey is. So I'm
No,
really happy when I get these calls.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And especially during these times when, people are in a way forced to be confined in their geographical locations, for a book to
Yeah.
have such detailed outlines of places and people and customs and food and tradition, it's actually satiating your wanderlust while reading a
Mhm.
book, and being able to devour all of that. So definitely that must have been lovely for the viewers or the readers to go through. Again, coming back on the Tomb of God, another question that popped into my head was, it starts with a massacre in northern Iraq, and
Mhm.
there is a character, Mariana, and
Mhm.
she's worried about Dr. Huntley, and that's how she reaches out to his emergency contacts, Eric, Oren, and Father Smith. So, tell us a little more about Mariana. Who's how what is Mariana's role in this book, and who's Dr.
I,
Huntley? Intrigue us
Swati,
a little
this is
bit.
a fantastic question, Swati. I remember that I told you that I promise you I'll make this, session very interesting. So I take you to that level. I have this bad habit of journaling. So I draw my characters. If you
Why
can
do you
see
call
some
it a
of
bad
them.
habit? Oh, that's lovely.
So yeah,
So
this is. I'm sorry, it's mirror image. Yeah, this is Oren. This one is Oren. This
the one
one
with the yellow mug
is
is Oren.
Mariana. Sorry, yeah. This one is
Yeah.
Mariana. Then there's
Uh-huh.
Father Smith. Then there is Sarah, who's Oren's friend. And then
Okay.
so
So you
I
actually
sketch.
draw these characters, you
Yeah,
sketch them
yeah, yeah,
yourself?
yeah. I wanted
Oh,
to.
wow,
Uh,
that's
this
fantastic.
is this is Dr. Huntley. This one. This one. And yeah, this is another character who is Eric Roy's support, IT support. So yeah,
Okay.
so in the process of development, I draw them. As I said that I was good in sketching and drawing. So yeah, this is my journal. I through the 4 years, this has been my companion, and yeah, so I develop these characters in such a way that that's why it took so long to develop the characters. I can see them, I know exactly how Dr. Huntley would respond to a typical question. I exactly know how Marina would do in a situation. So
You
yeah.
literally live besides them, isn't it, while you're writing your book?
Yes, because I am really honest as a writer, because I was not a writer. I was a communication person, and I was a musician. Music was my plan A. That didn't happen. So plan B was writing. Maybe I took it up, and
We would love
I
to
just
hear you play or sing too someday,
uh,
definitely.
yeah, someday, of course. But I really do believe that a story writing or developing a novel is no less than creating a music. Because in music also, it's a good question, good point you brought me to answer this. In music, it's slow build up, and then you gradually you develop you develop a kind of a framework, and you take your audience through. You take them towards the crescendo, and
Mm-hmm.
there are ups and downs, and you make your audience expect something, but you make them also not know how that would come, if I can put it in right words. So it's all
Absolutely.
so that's the piece. I'm not talking about the regular music. I'm talking about the classical pieces. Everything is there: the
Absolutely.
build up, the slow build up, the carrying the structure forward towards the crescendo, and ups and downs, and letting your audience keep on guessing how it would come, what would come, and then finally they get it, but they didn't know how that would come. So
Right.
that entire flow happens when you write a novel. Like the way I write my novels, I make it sure that there are enough doses of banter and humor and stuff like that throughout the novel, because I don't want to make it very claustrophobic for my audience. I want to. There's a lot of talk about food. So when they are traveling
Right.
through so every place, they are stopping, they are
And
eating
I
food, and
was going to mention that, yes, about food, about the little squabbles that they have with the local guides or the travelers. I've gone through the book a little,
hmm,
a lit- that little piece about the taxi driver and how he changed his name. Could you just tell the audience about that a little
yeah,
bit?
yeah. So Eric comes down to Baghdad airport, Samara. Samara is in between Mosul and Baghdad. So Mosul is his destination, where in the outskirts of Mosul, the excavation was happening, and there was this massacre. They all were killed by people, masked people. So Eric is going there. He comes out of the airport and he checks the number. So there's a taxi cab waiting for him. It's an old Lada. So in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in all of that route, you still find the Russian models as
Right.
taxis. So Lada is standing there. So he goes. The guy is sleeping with a newspaper on his face. So he wakes him up and does a little chit chat and says, "I'm going Samara and this and that." So he says, "Okay, come in, sit." And then he says, "What's your name?" Eric asks. So he says, "Abu Hassan." So immediately Eric says, "What's your real name?" So he said, "Oh, I see you get it. I know people coming from everywhere. They think we all are Abu Hassan, and that kind of a thing." So I really laughed when I wrote this dialogue. Oh, okay, what's your real name? So Eric is that kind of a no nonsense
And
person. So
aren't these the real things that perhaps people would face when
yes,
they
yes,
visit a foreign
yes.
land? So that
I
makes it
met
more
people.
appealing and more realistic for the readers
Yes,
to
yes, yes.
relate to.
I met this kind of people in London while I was studying, and I was researching on this book Tomb of God. I stayed actually for nearly a month. I almost become a member of the museum, British Museum, and the director said Victor will get free coffee. He's our guy. He's a BBC guy. He'll get free coffee. So I actually thanked him in my book for the free coffee. I mentioned that free coffee in my book.
Oh,
So yeah, I
that's
met a lot of
lovely.
people. The guards over there, somewhere from Syria, somewhere from Iraq, from Afghanistan,
Mhm.
and they talk like that. They think that the other world take them as all the same, the Suleimans or the Abu Hassans, you know. So this Abu Hassan also has a fetish for Cameron Diaz. So he likes Cameron
Okay.
Diaz's films, and he sings through the entire journey. He sings and he goes out of control, and Eric pulls him back and says, "Please concentrate on driving and don't sing. Stop. You are a good singer, I understand, but please stop. Drive, focus." So it was fantastic writing those. This I felt they were new because in thrillers people do not possibly write about people. So as a
Hmm.
communication person, again, I love people. I love communicating with them. I love creating a kind of ambience when I talk. So yeah, I include them in my book, and I think that is liked by people.
That also reminds me, Victor, you mentioned during the course of research for Tomb of God when you were in London in the museum, you met somebody, was it at a cafe, who
Yeah, yeah,
spoke to you
yeah,
about,
yeah. We were discussing the other day. Yeah,
yes,
yeah. It
yes,
was
if you could please share that with our viewers today.
okay.
That
You
was
want
a
to hear
very
that?
interesting bit. Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
please.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, it was the BBC main building, and so we were having a kind of a chat. They were around 8, 9 colleagues of mine. We were all having our coffees. I was having my tea, and someone said, "Oh, Victor is, guys, Victor is writing a fiction, a historical fiction on the Mesopotamian civilization and the pre-Harappan civilization." And so there was this guy from Afghanistan. He was a senior journalist. He came for some training or something. So he said, "Oh, are you really writing that book?" I said, "Yes, I have started. I'm here. I'm here for some research." "Oh, okay, then I have something to tell you." So he
Oh,
come with me.
wow.
So we take another table, and then he said that Victor, a few years back, they were actually having an excavation in a place called Nimrod. Nimrud is
Hmm.
the ancient city of Nimrud. Now that is again very near to Mosul. Mosul is a district now
Okay.
in Iraq. So he said there was this excavation, and I happened to be there, and as I was taking photographs and writing notes. So they discovered a tomb in the
Hmm.
main temple building. They discovered a tomb which was Queen Yaba's tomb, which was around around 2000 BC,
Right.
really old, um, uh, a little less than that. Yeah, so they were excavating, and I went there. He said they found an antechamber, and I entered. He said, I was possibly the third or fourth person to enter that. The dust was still settling, and we found some 60 plus mummies. So these were the mummies of the slaves who died along with the
Mummies.
queen. Queen Yaba. So they were the
Oh,
slaves. So he said that Victor, fantastic thing was that so they were males and females. They were all ready for the coming, for death. They were ready for the death. But there was one girl.
so they knew that they were going to get
Yeah, of
buried
course,
in there
because they were
already.
prepared. No, they were prepared for their death, for the death pit. I called it
Right.
death pit in my book. So
Okay.
there was one girl. He said that she would be 14, 15-year old. She was the one who was, to me, he said, to me, it seemed that she was not ready for the death because everyone had a silver coil. They coiled up through their arms, both the arms. But this girl, she coiled up one arm, the other arm she was possibly still trying to do that, but she couldn't finish when she died. So that coil was, with the first air coming in from outside, that coil was, dangling in thin air, and it was like a mesmerizing shot for me. I took that photo, but I cried later, Victor, that it was a momentary vision that this girl was not ready for her death, but she died. And I said,
Gee.
wow, this could be, I don't know. So this became my prologue. I started my book. If we get some time, I'll write a couple of paragraphs. I read a couple of paragraphs from my book. So I started my book from there, that excavation, not the excavation, but the time, 2000 years back. And this girl was getting ready but she also has a secret to, leave back for her brother, and she dies.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so
Wow.
that's my
And
prologue, and it
and
was
I
fantastic.
I can't think of a better segue than this conversation, Victor, for you to share any excerpt of your choice from your
I'll do
book
that.
for our readers, just to get a flavor of what the Tomb of God is all about.
Yeah, I'll just do that. I'll read the prologue where the book starts, because see, it was such a moment for me, a kind of a momentary vision, because as he was telling me, I was like a movie. I was seeing that entire thing happening in front of my eyes, and I said, wow, man, this is my prologue. I have to write. I have to start it from here. So the prologue says, it's a Mesopotamian city of Nimrud. The after-walled chamber for Queen Yaba was built a few days ago, and it was now ready for her earthly body. Leaning on an outer wall of the chamber, Ninki stood all by herself. She rubbed her palm across the fresh white surface and felt the dampness from the last coat of plaster. Her body shivered, her heart hammered loud enough that she could hear it, yet she knew she had to finish the job before she was dead. She wrote faster on the damp surface of the wall. She knew her brother was far away, finishing a secret task, a task that involved using a skill their family had nurtured for generations. She believed he would eventually come back for her, but she would not survive long enough to meet him. So she had to leave a message for him, a message that would take him on the trail of the secret she had been harboring. But she had no to be quick. She had to be quick about it, for it was almost time for the queen's funeral. Ninki joined the other men and women walking down to the great death pit, a name they had given the newly built after-walled chamber for Queen Yaba. All of them had already tied the gold and silver ribbons on their arms. Ninki stumbled along with the group, gasping and clasping in her palm the tablet, which was much more precious to her than her own life, for it held the secret of a hidden place of immense value. She tried to coil one of the ribbons around her arm with only one thought in her mind: would the message that she held in her hand survive? It had to. It was the only remaining clue to a secret that had the power to change the world. Change the world. Ninki was, and with that, Ninki was yet to finish tying the ribbon when the lead server handed her the potion, which she gulped down before going back to fastening the ribbon. But the potion took hold of her body before she could finish, and with that started the painless process of her being carried away to the afterworld, leaving behind her earthly body and in a message hidden in the in her earthly hand. She fell to her knees on the dusty ground, and her whole body shuddered, tears streaming down her cheeks. She began to pray to her god, Nanna, the moon god. Her muscles gave up, and she dropped on the ground lifeless. Her right arm continued to clutch the tablet, half tied to her left hand, the silver ribbon. Half tied to her left hand, the silver ribbon swayed for eternity, and the entrance of the chamber was slowly sealed from outside.
Wow.
So this was the prologue, which happened after
For
that
a, for a,
conversation.
for a minute, it gave me a surreal experience of actually being there and wanting to know what was she clutching and what was on that tablet.
Thank you. Yeah, but yeah, that's why I repeat it over and over that conversations are so important for me. People are so important for me. There are at least 11 people, head of departments of different universities all over the world, Italy, Israel, who has been researching on several things, topics that I have put in my book, added in my book. So I get a lot of information from these people through our conversations, because I don't know what to ask, right? As a
Correct.
researcher, I don't know what to ask. So I can just initiate a conversation, and then whatever comes up, it's my bonus.
Absolutely. And just for the benefit of all the viewers out there, one review that in particular caught my attention for the Tomb of God says an intriguing premise building into a rip roaring crescendo of an adventure. Tomb of God is an extremely engaging spellbinder that took me in a whirlwind tour through varied vistas, leaving one gasping for breath, yet eagerly wanting to leap from one page to the next. Interspersed with lyrical prose, local flavors, and impeccable historical research, Victor Ghosh once again delights the readers.
So thank you so much for reading
So
that out, Swati. It's wonderful.
that that
Really.
that was that was one of the reviews that absolutely caught my attention. And as we were talking earlier during our conversation, in these times, the perfect getaway for avid book readers to go and see the world out there through different eyes, and perhaps someday visit these places in person would be through books like yours, where such things, such places, such characters and history is so beautifully articulated and researched.
Yeah.
Uh,
I.
one quick question, because
Yeah.
I see the watch out there and we are slowly running out of time. Uh,
Please.
for the youngsters, Victor, you have been in varied fields, a very creative person since your younger days have been a storyteller. What it is out there that you would like to tell the children, the generation of today, to figure out in terms of their calling, uh, your message out there typically?
I'll take that. I'll take that. See, there's me. I have a mission for tomorrow's generation to tell them that be creative. So from your childhood, we parents also need to tell them to think out of the box, to be able to jot down whatever is happening in your mind. So I promote journaling in a big way, as you can see. So this is the other book where I was actually jotting. So this was the part two, Tomb of God part two. I show just one
Are
or two
you already
illustrations.
working on part two?
No, this is a part two in the sense the journal part two. So
Okay.
this
Oh,
is
wow.
this is what I got from the British Museum, because I couldn't take photographs. So
Right.
I was
Sitting and
actually
sketching?
sitting and sketching things. So
Oh,
this
that's
this
wonderful.
guy this guy plays a major role in my book. So I was looking for a reference, and when I found one, this was in a part of a stela. They call it a stela, a stone stela.
And are
So
these sketches? also included in the book, Victor?
Not really. In India, you don't have that kind of a scope where you can come up with a colored and
Okay.
illustrated books. Yeah. So I tell you one very interesting thing. I was sketching this dagger, and then the captain
Wow.
of the floor. It was around 8:30 p.m. in the night. I was all alone in the gallery. I'm just showcasing what can be done for tomorrow's writers. That if you are serious, you can develop it. So yeah, the captain comes and says he looks at what I'm doing. He knows me. He says, "Well, we thought you were a scholar on a research trip." I said, yes, I am a scholar on a research trip. But no, but what you're doing that tells us that you are a painter, possibly. Well, in India, we learn things and the times are tight. You need to double up. One job is not enough. So we had a real good laugh. Uh, and then I figured, oh, wow, so this is a good dialogue. I have to put this in my book as well. So there is a time when Eric says, Eric does a lot of things, and someone is astonished, this Marina girl. She says, I thought you are an archaeologist, and wow, you know your guns that good. You can shoot that well. So he says, well, it's tight times. You cannot, live with one job. You have to double up. So he actually says that. So you see, it all comes from the life. So that's what my message to everyone who wants to, young adults who wants to write and become writers tomorrow. It all comes from life. You just need to observe things, talk to people, initiate great conversations, and whenever you like something, I think I have given more than one examples where the dialogues came from life. I just jotted them down, and
Yes.
then I put them in my book. So it's all there. You are exposed to a beautiful world. I'm sure the pandemic will go off soon. We will be again
Absolutely.
free to move, and so we have everything. But yes, I have a three pointer, Swati, to answer your question. A little 3 point for people who really want to write. This I'm sure this will be helpful. Um, so in communication, we say that it's important to immerse in whatever you do. You're writing a short thing or a long thing, or you need to get inside it, deep dive.
Deep
So
dive.
immerse, deep dive,
Exactly.
immerse yourself, close your eyes, just get into it. And the second thing is to, visualize yourself in that in that universe, where you have deep
Correct.
dived, right? And the third part is, if you are doing these two things real well, then you will find the story evolving in front of you, branching out from the main line to the next line in front of you. You will meet your characters there in the story because you are already in it. So
Absolutely.
if this is what I think can be a real good suggestion for young adults who want to write and who want to make a difference. Because if you take your job seriously, then people will love that. I have seen that in my life.
Absolutely. No, you have put that very succinctly for the budding
Thank you.
writers or for the generation, just to inculcate these habits, and not just for writing. I would say journaling
Good.
is one very good habit to have even otherwise. So thank you so much for that. I would really like to thank our viewers today for tuning in and listening to our conversation and participating. I see a lot of lovely comments out there. So thank you so much, all of our viewers. And just as a parting shot from me, Victor, if you don't mind, this is a little something that caught my attention from your book. And the lines read, the most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all art and science. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. His eyes are closed. And this was Albert Einstein.
Yeah, I
So
love
I
that.
urge all of you to please go on, log into Amazon or whichever is your preferred e-commerce site and grab either a e-Kindle copy or a paperback of The Tomb of God today, because I'm going to place in my order now. Thank you so much, everyone, for being such a lovely audience. Victor, the pleasure was all mine speaking to you today. It was a wonderful conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Absolutely, Swati. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. I got a lot of love from Chandigarh people whenever I went over there, and my publisher was from Chandigarh. So I have a special corner in my heart for you, all of you, because I understand that many of people are logged in from Chandigarh, and other people as well. Whoever has given their time to see this talk, I'm sure, because we have enjoyed this talk, I'm sure, Swati. Right? Thank you so
Absolutely
much.
loved every
Thank
moment of it. And thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely evening. And it's happy Sunday from the Chandigarh Literary Society. Thank you, Victor.
thank you.